Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Sons of Thunder Apologia, or Apologetics. And we're actually trying something a little different today. We are live on Facebook as well as YouTube. So we're going to try that. I have no idea if that's going to be consistent. We will just see how that goes. And as you can see, I am currently by myself. Chase is not feeling well tonight. So Chase is not going to be with us, but joining us soon will be our friend Chris from Defending a Lion. He will be joining us to walk through this curriculum, and we will be going through. So we have a apologetics class. That's how Chase and I got acquainted, and we became friends over the years. And so I taught the class for a few years. Chase has taught the class, and we both just kind of fell in love with apologetics. And we realized that we have the curriculum, and we didn't know the best way to go about producing the curriculum on the internet. We thought about recording ourselves in a room teaching it from a PowerPoint and using slides. Then we realized, well, we have StreamYard. We can make this work. We can just put the PowerPoints up on StreamYard. So that's what we're going to do. So I have the curriculum, and we are going to go through it. Unfortunately, I actually made a mistake. The thumbnail says the case for apologetics. That is wrong. I actually decided to do the case for God. And so I'll actually quickly kind of give a defense for apologetics, because sometimes apologetics gets a bad rap. And I don't think it's totally unwarranted. There are definitely times where apologetics can be used more as a weapon than as a tool. And so one thing that we try to push in this curriculum is that apologetics is a tool in your tool belt. It is not a sword. Okay. It is, you could even call it the tool belt itself, because you're going to encounter different problems, and you're going to encounter different questions. You're going to encounter different kinds of people. And so you never know exactly what you're going to need. But the focus of apologetics is that you have the tools necessary. You have exactly what you're looking for the specific case in question. So why should you care about apologetics? You should care about apologetics because there are certain people that are going to be convinced by different things. And that is not a one size fits all scenario. And some people are going to be convinced just by the gospel of you, right? As a Christian, the way you live, the way you act, the way that you interact with other people is going to be convincing evidence for Christ for some people. However, there are going to be some people that you can love them as much as you possibly can, but that's not always going to be the way that they learn or interact or grow or how they receive Christ. So you have to be able to appeal to different people and different audiences depending on what they need. And it's going to be different for different people. So that's why we do apologetics. It's why we try to have a defense of the faith. And there's also scriptural support for defending the faith, right? Peter tells us to be prepared and have a defense for the joy that we receive, right? That we know why we're doing something, not just that I've got faith or whatever it might be, that we have a reasonable understanding of why we believe what we believe, not just that I prayed a prayer once and then I go to church on Sunday. And no, we need to be in our word. We need to be consistent. I'm so sorry. My dog is, hey, Bucky. All right. Thank you, buddy. But we need to be consistently growing and changing. And I think apologetics pushes people in that direction, and it helps them to understand defending their faith in a way they've never had to before. So that was kind of like the first PowerPoint was just defending apologetics. As I looked through it, I was like, I think I can kind of summarize this, and we can kind of move into a more headier topic, which is the case for God. So I'm going to pull this up. So yeah, this is the case for God. And I hold on. Let me actually I'm I did this wrong once, and I don't want to do it wrong again. So we're going to do this. Also share system audio. There we go. There are videos in this, and I definitely want everybody to actually be able to hear the videos. All right. So, like I said, we're going to go through the case for God, and we are going to anyways, one of the comments one of the comments was pretty crazy. I know what he's talking about. Okay. There we go. Let's get rid of that. Sorry, I had to ban someone. All right. So, the case for God. Like I said, we went ahead and skipped over the case for apologetics just because I didn't think it was super necessary, as this is an apologetics page. So, also a lot of people who will be seeing this will have already known that. So, we're going to just keep moving forward.
Welcome to the 1 Minute Apologist. If you had 1 minute to be able to unpack for the audience, we interview the world's leading apologists to provide credible answers to curious questions. Well, Sean, I'm happy to see that you got your Spider-Man shirt on today, bro.
You know it, man.
I'm so
I
sorry.
should have worn my Pluto one for you, dude.
Pluto?
Actually, I'm a Scooby-Doo guy, so.
Okay, Scooby-Doo's cool.
Scooby-Doo guy.
That's cool.
Let me ask you a question. A lot of people out there, they're thinking about this idea of God, and some would say that God is a human invention. How would you respond to somebody who posed that?
I hear that a lot,
Mhm.
especially skeptics or agnostics think that it's something that we've made up. The problem is that the evidence for the existence of God is compelling. Whether it's the origin of the universe, there has to be a beginner. Whether it's the incredible amount of information that we see in the cell, has to come from an author. Whether it's the laws of physics being incredibly fine-tuned, just exquisitely for life, or whether it's the historical evidence for Jesus Christ. When something's an invention, we know it because we've been able to just make it up and invent it. But when it comes to Christianity, there's truths in the world that point toward this really being true, being real.
Thanks, Sean.
So, forgive again that is a very old video, but certain topics are life altering. Their existence is fundamentally important. So, like math, if math did not exist, then much of science, engineering, and modern technology could not exist, right? Actually, you could argue that math is truly like the building blocks and foundational elements of the entire universe. That math is part of literally everything that makes up the universe what it is. It's found everywhere. Math is something we kind of found, not something we totally invented. And then money. If money did not exist, then much of the modern life, modern economics, and modern business cannot exist. Money is foundational to the system we have created. But there's even more fundamental and life-altering topic, obviously, God, right? God, the foundation of existence, right? This is where we come from. It's where how we understand the universe and everything in it. If God does not exist, many important truths cannot exist, right? So you have these 4 pillars here: morality, meaning, love, purpose. We would argue that morality is objective. There's an objective standard of what is right and what is wrong, and that meaning that all life has intrinsic value and meaning, that there's a meaning to reality, that even the concept of love doesn't really make sense without a God, and that life doesn't exactly have purpose if there is no God. That kind of gets into nihilism, which nihilism is kind of an extreme form of atheism. And so if there is no God, a lot of these pillars topple, right? These are fundamentally important, and they all stem from God. Now, even though God's existence is necessary, some people reject him, obviously. Skeptics often claim that I've never seen God, so God doesn't exist, right? We have another video. enjoy the acting. It's wonderful.
You smell that?
What? Kind of, I don't know, kind of smells a bit like smoke.
Yeah. Do you think the building's on fire?
The building's on fire. Think about it. It's probably the smokers down in the break room. They're always taking a break about this time of the day. You know, it's Friday.
Totally.
I didn't think about that. You're
100%.
probably right.
Yep,
Absolutely
absolutely.
about that.
Easy answer. No diff.
The fire alarm. See, I told you it was the building's on fire.
Listen, do you know how many things could explain that sound? You just need to relax. The parking lot is right there. That's probably somebody's car alarm going off, or maybe it's somebody's ringtone on their phone. I don't know why you're thinking about fire, but you just need to relax.
The building's on fire.
Oh, give me a break. Don't you see what you're doing? You're getting all worked up over what's probably nothing. There's a lot of things that can explain the evidence of your so-called fire, and you just need to relax. It's probably nothing.
Man, I don't know.
Exactly. You don't know. Now, can't we just get back to finishing this report so we can get out of here at 5 o'clock for a nice stress-free weekend?
Aren't you hot? The temperature's risen like 20 degrees in here. Look at this.
You see, this is exactly what I've been saying. You've been convincing yourself that there's a fire, and now you're having this like psychosomatic reaction. I mean, look, you're even sweating. I mean, you want to believe there's a fire so bad, you're having a physical response. You need to chill out.
I'm telling you, it's getting hot in here. I'm going to look out in the hallway.
I don't have to go look in the hallway. I know there's no fire.
Wow, the door handle is super hot. It just burned my hand.
You know what? You are becoming absolutely delusional now. Don't you think if there really was a fire, two highly educated men like you and me would know about it? You've just talked yourself into this
Amen.
ridiculous fantasy.
Easy.
Look, there's
How
smoke.
goofy to believe there might actually be a
It's coming
fire.
from underneath the door.
Yeah, it does kind of look like smoke, but don't you know the janitors are always buffing the hallway on Fridays about this time? And that's kind of what it looks like when they buff too long in the same place. You know what I mean?
Man, you can believe whatever you want. I'm getting out of here.
Man, what a gullible fool. Wait, stop the gurney, There must be like a long-haired cat in that building because I'm having a severe allergic reaction. Look at my skin.
Allergic reaction, sir. You have third-degree burns over 70% of your body. You were lucky to survive that fire.
Fire? Somebody give me a Benadryl.
All right. Yeah. Inside that office, could they see or touch the fire? No, obviously they could not. They couldn't see it, couldn't touch it. But there was evidence of a fire. What were those evidences? We had the smell, alarm, heat, smoke, fire trucks, hot door handle, right? We had all these pieces, right? All these evidences of a fire existing and happening and damaging the building. And yet there was one person who was trying to acknowledge the evidence and was saying that I think that there's fire and I think we need to get to safety. And then you had one who was skeptical of fire and saying, no, there is no fire. No, you're just making things up. You're delusional. How could you believe that there's a fire? Why would there be a fire? It doesn't make any sense that there's a fire. And what would a reasonable person conclude based on all the evidence that we showed? The basic would be, or the reasonable person would say, the fire existed, right? That is a reasonable conclusion. And what other important topic do people struggle with in spite of the evidence? Obviously, God. What are the three fundamental worldviews? So, theist, a person who believes that God exists. Polytheists believe in more than one God, obviously. Agnostic would be a person who is unsure if God exists, but is open to the possibility. And then atheist is a person who does not believe that God exists. As far as the percentages within the USA, atheists make up about 4%, agnostics 5%, and then theists, 84%. Now, this was from 2021. This number may have fluctuated some. And obviously, theists is not specifically Christians, but this is 84% of our country is believes in a god or multiple gods. And then you have some who are religiously unaffiliated, but may call themselves like spiritual or whatever. Yeah, you may want to say. So globally, since the 70s, at least, atheism has been declining. So you had your highest atheist peak was in the modern ages, 165 million self-identifying atheists. That doesn't necessarily mean that there weren't more or than that, but the ones who at least acknowledged that they were atheists was 165 million. And then in 2019, that number dropped down to 138 million. And that's currently what we're on track with. And then this is the projection by 2050. Obviously, as Christian apologists, we would absolutely love to see that number go down even further faster. But we're just, kind of being generous here. Some skeptical claims. So only uneducated people believe in fairy tales like God. Actually, most highly educated intellectuals in modern history have been theists. Once again, we're not claiming that all were Christians, but they believed in some form of a higher power. Educated people, like scientists, don't believe in God. Another skeptical claim. Actually, almost every single branch of modern science was founded by a theist. So here's a list of, again, like I said, most of the people on this list were Christians, but these are theists, not specifically Christians. But you've got things like antiseptic surgery, bacteriology, calculus, chemistry, dynamic electronics, electrodynamics, hydraulics, isotopic chemistry. You just keep going down the list. All of these throughout history, as you can see, the different dates here were founded by theists, not by atheists. And then let me go ahead. Hello, Chris.
Hallelujah! He came back. He gave his life to Yeshua.
Oh, hold up. We're going to take a pause. Everybody, we're going to pause real quick. Okay, hold on. So we almost started late. We did start a little bit late, but we started a little bit later because we were just in a previous live stream on Chris's channel. For those who don't know, this is our friend Chris Harvey, who runs Defending a Lion.
Oh, hi.
Will be linked in this video. Please go check out his page. And we were just in an awesome conversation with an ex-Muslim who wanted to give his testimony and then had some questions for us. And as we would both kind of claim to be Christian apologists in general. Chris, I had to leave a little bit early. Chris, do you want to give some update on how that conversation went after I left?
Yeah, so he asked me one more question, and then I answered it, and he said, "Okay, I'm ready to take my shahada, my Christian shahada." And I was like, "Okay, sure, why not? Let's do it." So that's why I'm late.
So did you like pray with him and show him the confess with your mouth, believe in your heart? Oh, fantastic.
Yes, although I tried to do that in the original live stream, and Satan wasn't having that. He kicked him. His internet disconnected.
Oh, wow.
Just disconnected. And I waited 15 minutes for him to come back, and he didn't come back. So I was like, okay, maybe his family woke up. Maybe he couldn't talk to me. I don't know what's happening. So I ended the live stream, and then I went pee, came back, saw that he was there, and he pulled up. He said, "Oh, my brother, I'm sorry." And then I started another live stream. So there's 2 live streams for tonight. Go ahead and change that on YouTube Studio. to actually have a thumbnail for the other one. But I did another live stream immediately. It was like, no, we got to do it now. I was like, do you want to give your life on stream? He said, yeah, or do it. Let's do it. So, yeah.
That's amazing.
And we
God
walked through
bless.
it. We praised God, confessed Jesus with his mouth.
That's
And then we
amazing.
had a little 15-minute prayer and blessing and celebration in the comments. It was,
Dude. Wow.
God is good.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw my message, but I specifically said, take your time. Do not worry about this. I can handle this. I said that is a much more important conversation. God bless. That's amazing, guys. So what I'll also do, I'll go ahead, since you all are listening to this and you're hearing this, I will include in the description of this video Chris's channel, but I'll also link the live stream so you can hear our conversation. Powerful testimony of a ex-Muslim, and I'll link. Are you going to merge the two videos together or just keep them as two live streams?
I might merge them and then re-upload it as one big video.
Okay. Well, I'll look tomorrow.
I don't know. No, you can do pre-recorded live streams. It's just a little weird. I don't know. I'll figure it out.
Okay. I'll look tomorrow with what you got out, and then I'll add it to the video so people can go and they can click on it and listen, because it's absolutely worth listening to his testimony, and then seeing his conversion would be very powerful. I don't know if he's still in the live, but why would theists refer to God by the name Providence? I have no idea. Based on the list I was showing, I don't really know what that's coming from. Anyways, if you're talking about the idea of just providence, like divine providence, then that could still technically be lumped in with theists, because they acknowledge that something had to put reality together, that there was some higher being that put reality together in a certain manner. And they may not subscribe specifically to a personal God. There could be like the watchmaker theory. But the watch would absolutely require providence to exist. So Chris, I'll catch you up a little bit. So I actually messed up. I did not mean to put the thumbnail as a case for apologetics, because this is an apologetics page. The whole purpose is that we do apologetics. I don't think people need to necessarily go through a 100-slide presentation of why apologetics matters. But I went ahead and pulled up the case for God. So right now I'm going through the case for God. We just watched a video about two guys in a fire.
Lee Strobel?
Kind of, yeah. Case for Christ. I don't know. Does he have a book just called Case for God?
I think so.
Okay. Well, we just played a video.
Hold on.
It was called Fireproof.
Oh, yeah. It's by Karen Armstrong, but there is a book called The Case of God. For God.
That makes sense.
Different person entirely. Yeah.
But the video was the one guy was the skeptic, who every time the person who was acknowledging the evidence kept saying, "Oh, there's smoke and it smells like fire, and this door handle's hot," and all these different things. And then the skeptic was saying, "Oh, you are so convinced there's a fire now that you think the door handle's hot. That's crazy." And, "Oh, it smells like smoke. I bet they're just cooking something down in the kitchen right now." But so different things, and then pointing out how one was willing to acknowledge that there were evidences in life for this thing to exist, and rationally decides, okay, this thing probably exists.
Right.
But then you have the other who would argue that no, they will deny as much as they can that any form of evidence is, what does Matthew McConaughey say in The Wolf of Wall Street? It's like it's fairy dust. It's just it blows in the wind. It's not real. But yeah. So my dog is
growling.
Going, yeah. sorry, deism does not believe God is active in human affairs, not theism.
Right.
Fair enough. Yes. And maybe this would be the slide I was on. I'll just go ahead and pull it back up real quick. That it might be better. I can't specifically tell you right now off the top of my head if every single person on this list was a theist over a deist. So this might need to be slightly altered. But even in the concept of the individual believed a God set the universe in motion, but didn't exactly continue to watch over his creation, I still think that counts in the sense of the individual was some form of religious. If you could explain what you mean by providence better, that would be helpful for your question. All right. I'm going to take 5 seconds to let my dog out of my room because he does not seem to want to be in here. So just give me 1 moment and I'll be right back.
No, it's just me. No. Oh man. Okay. Yeah. That was a wild stream. Pretty much, I'm assuming the slide he's going over right now is all science was like done by theist, not atheist,
Okay.
which is true. Most of them were Christian. The vast
Okay.
majority of which were Christian, actually, or Jew.
All right. Yes. So worldviews of scientists. A majority of scientists acknowledge the existence of God or the existence of a higher power, like we mentioned. So Nobel Prizes for science. Chris, also, if you have any input as I'm going, just stop me because there's a lot of slides. So I just kind of move.
Okay.
So it recognizes the best and brightest scientific minds, right? We all know the Nobel Prize is big deal. So for Nobel Prize winners for science, atheists and agnostics have won low percentages across the board. 7.1% of the prizes in chemistry, 8.9% in medicine, 4.7% in physics, while theists have won 89.8% of the prizes in chemistry, 88.2% in medicine, 91.2% in physics. And this is our sources if you wanted to fact check us on that. But there's not a conflict between science and God. Okay. I think this is often the idea that science can prove why things happen and why we exist does not conflict with the idea that we had a creator. Right. So like if with how advanced AI is getting, for instance, if we had a video game that the video game got so developed and it was using AI, and these individual characters were able to have some sense of free will or freedom within the game because all the mechanics have been laid out and the characters, because of the AI, are able to operate within the world that has been created. Even if they were able to refine themselves so much to understand that they are in a video game, that they were created and that there are rules and boundaries set for the video game, that does not eliminate that the video game was created by somebody outside of the game, right? So if we're talking about reality, even if science is proving how creation happened and how we got here, that does not mean that we happened either by accident or that we happened by chance, right? Just because science can provide explanation for how something happened in the sense of like how lightning works, still doesn't explain why lightning exists at all, right? Like that's the why is still not being answered. We can figure out everything about how, but that doesn't always mean we know why. Chris,
Goes a little bit deeper than that too. Yeah. So science is only possible if God exists. So, what is science? Science is repeatable testing, and you can make hypothesis. You can test if your hypothesis is valid. If it's valid, it moves on. If it's not valid, it doesn't move on. And then you do that a bunch, you test it a bunch, and eventually the hypothesis becomes more so fact than just a hypothesis, and it gains the status of theory for how something happens and scientific law for a thing that does happen. Why do things happen the same way every time, no matter how many times you do it?
Mm.
There's no reason for it. Just
No.
like logically. The fact that the universe is ordered and testable and repeatable indicates that there is an order giver, because random interactions between matter and energy should produce random results, but it doesn't. It produces order. The order of the universe, the laws of the universe, are not readily explainable through purely physico-chemical means. You don't have any inherent mechanisms within physics and chemistry that would naturally produce the type of order or the type of laws that we observe in the universe, let alone its fine-tuning for life. But even ignoring the fine-tuning argument, which is a pretty good argument, you should look into it, or we might go through it. But even ignoring the fine-tuning argument, just going through, why is the universe orderly? Why is it comprehensible? Why can we see order itself? Because order takes energy to create and energy to maintain. Entropy is the destruction of order. It goes back to nothingness. So whenever we have a high entropy state, we have very low order. Well, right now we have a high ordered state and a very low entropy state. And we have no idea why. If the universe is billions of years old, if the universe is eternal, because something had to be eternal. So if it's not the universe, it's God. But let's say the universe is eternal. How in the world do we have order right now as we speak? Why is there laws that are repeatable? And why is there order to the atoms itself, to the energy itself? Why are there systems of order within the universe
Right.
if there is no God? It makes no sense.
Yeah, we when we did a video on atheism a while back, Chase was explaining to me that there are people who think that before we had physical creation, that the laws of nature still existed and that the laws of nature helped govern the creation.
It can't.
And I had an actual come apart. I was like, that doesn't even make sense. There's no possible way anybody can think that the laws of nature, which are a part of the creation, pre-existed creation. And at that point, you are just arguing for a God that doesn't have a mind. Because if there is a power that is governing the entire universe's creation, that is God. That is some form of power that is controlling all reality. Because the fact that you just said it, the fact that laws even exist to govern reality makes virtually no sense if someone didn't place it that way. If someone didn't put those laws over reality, the idea that those would just happen by chance or naturally makes virtually no sense. And I truly challenge people to consider this. Why? Right? Why does that exist? Why do the laws of nature exist? If you acknowledge that there was some type of process that could not have been broken, that put the universe in its proper places, why and how does that happen if there's no intellectual mind putting these pieces together? I don't see how that's possible.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean,
I know, keep
so
going.
you can you can go a little bit further with that too. Of if you just say that the properties of the laws are intrinsic to matter itself, that doesn't actually work from the Big Bang perspective, because the no matter which of the different models of it you are participating in, if you just have like the old naive version that has been disproven through physics, if you have the inflationary cosmology model that's been disproven from observable evidence we have, such as the lack of B mode light propagation in the universe. If inflation did indeed happen that way, you would expect a lot of spiral propagation of light. We don't see it. We see straight lines everywhere. And whenever we looked at the poles, we didn't observe it when we should have observed it. So we have evidence against inflationary theory, and there's a couple other pieces of mathematical evidence you can use against inflationary theory. But no matter what mechanism you have for the Big Bang, you cannot have gravity and strong force active at the smallest moment of the singularity. Because if you do, the singularity can't mathematically expand out to what we see today. No matter what type of inflation you try to put onto it, it mathematically can't work. So what physicists have to say is the laws of gravity and strong force and electromagnetic force didn't exist for a split second of time at the beginning, whenever that means. And then after a few moments of expansion, then they turned on. Because otherwise it would just, it couldn't actually,
Right.
you know, it couldn't succeed. So the fact that we succeeded, that there is matter and energy that is orderly, that is uniform, that has these weird things, and we can go through all the weird details of cosmology that don't really line up with the standard model. But the fact that the universe exists at all in the state that it exists in is impossible. You can't also have an eternal universe because of entropy, because of the redshift that we observe, that either means that the universe is young, that's one of the possibilities, or the universe is expanding out from one single point. And the Earth just so happens to look like the center of that, but then they explain it from like the inflation of balloons, and it gets complicated. But the universe does, like, the Earth does look like the center of the universe. Anyway, even with all of that, there is no possible way that the universe exists naturally as it stands right now because of entropy. It just doesn't work. And also you run into the problem of infinite regress, of cause and effects. Tom is in the chat. He's
Tom,
apologizing.
Tom, you have nothing to apologize for. I let Chris know in our private message. I said, take as much time as you possibly need, because your guys' conversation was 1 billion times more important than the live stream here. So no, nothing to apologize for, brother.
Yeah. Yes. So you have infinite regress is also a problem. In order for an infinite number of, so the universe can't be eternal, can't be infinite, because it needs to have an origin point for time, not for the physics. Like the matter itself can be infinite. You would just have a very, very, very high entropy state. There would be no order. Yes, Tom, go to sleep. But we have order and we have time. So because now is happening right now, the universe can't be eternal. Because in order for now to start happening, yesterday had to happen. In order for yesterday to happen, the day before had to happen. In order for the day before it to happen, the day before that had to happen. And you can just keep pushing that back forever. And there is no starting point. If there's no starting point, there is no end point. There is no today. Because there's an infinite number of days before whatever termination point you have, before you get to today, or before you get to yesterday, or before you get to the day before that, or before you get to the day before that. So no matter how you classify that, there has to be a truncating point in time and cause and effect in order to get the universe we observe now. So because there is cause and effect, you cannot actually achieve today unless there is something eternal outside of the universe itself that is self-caused, that is the first cause of everything else. There needs to be a primary first cause. The universe would have to have a mind and have to have a will in order to achieve that. And if you're saying that of the universe, you might as well be a pantheist. You're still a deist at the end of the day. You can't be an atheist with the observable universe we have now. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
Before we move on, just wanted to say, I just noticed, if anybody is watching on Facebook, because it's on a personal Facebook, I did not realize that comments will not show up in StreamYard. So if anyone's been commenting on there, I am so sorry. I have not seen them. Hopefully I can see them when I look later. All right, let's get back to the slideshow. So, like we said, there's no conflict between science and God. Just fundamentally, there's none. The fact that we can even do science is in itself evidence for God. And so what is the case for God? So we have several. This is short list of reasons that we love. But so a short list is, we've got Big Bang cosmology. Chris mentioned fine tuning. That's one of my favorite arguments. The law of cause and effect, again, it's kind of what Chris was just explaining, was that there had to be some form of initial cause, right? That the universe essentially is a constant stream of effect that started from some singular point. And we would just argue that original cause was outside of the effect. And then DNA being a written language that creates life, is pretty unbelievable. Actually, the deeper we look into DNA, the like genuinely, some of these things are just mind-boggling. Abiogenesis, self-consciousness, intelligence, and then you've got also the resurrection of Christ, second law of thermodynamics, logic,
Entropy.
fulfilled prophecy. All of these things are some of the evidences for God.
And you have two of my favorites not on the list.
Which ones are your? Oh, hold on. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. What are your favorites?
The argument from beauty.
You said, oh, not on the list.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I actually would. I 100% agree. That's actually a fun argument, because why is anything beautiful?
Right.
If we are just bundles
Random.
of stardust and random, and we, everything has been predetermined by just the effect of the universe, why is there beauty in anything? We should all just be eating chicken and broccoli every day for perfect fuel for survival. We should not ever take time to make a beautiful meal, because flavor doesn't matter. Just what matters is protein, the protein, carbs, and the sugars your body needs to function. That's all that matters.
Yeah, the fact that humans can experience awe is kind of shocking. The hopefully one day convicted PDF file, Bill Gates, whenever he had Yo-Yo Ma doing a private audition for him, he was listening. Or no, it wasn't actually Bill Gates. Sorry, not mentioning him. He's in the Epstein files.
Catch a stray.
Steve Jobs. Whenever he had Yo-Yo Ma playing for him, he said that him playing his cello was the greatest argument he'd ever heard for the existence of God, because the fact that we can be moved to such an extent through music, through beauty, that we can experience awe, is not something you can really rationally explain from the atheistic worldview. Like, what evolutionary advantage does awe have when awe doesn't help you get food, doesn't help you procreate, doesn't help you stay alive? If anything, could actually hurt those things, because you could seek out the source of awe, which doesn't actually provide those things for you. But you have the subjective and also objective beauty, the things that everyone collectively agrees is beautiful, like the sunrise and the sunset. Why do we find such beauty in it? Why are we captivated by it in ways that are just seemingly random? But yet, anyone who looks at it, like, you just take a moment, you just breathe, and you just it's also one of my favorite things from the Bible is whenever the first man saw the first woman naked, he experienced awe and started waxing poetic and started spitting hot poetry at his wife of, "You're a bone of my bone, flesh of my flesh." Like, the first poetry that ever happened according to the Bible is Adam seeing Eve naked. Can all the men get a hallelujah in chat for seeing women naked and be like, wow? But researchers have studied the effect of awe on men seeing women naked, which is an interesting phenomenon. But it's not just like, oh, I want to procreate. It's literally like you are taken aback. Why? But you also have the argument for the permanence of math, which is another interesting one.
Yeah, so one of the
list.
things, it is actually interesting it's not on this list, because earlier there were things that were like essentials for our current understanding of reality, and one of them was math. And I mentioned that, like, math is something we discovered, right? It's not, it existed outside of us. We didn't, it didn't need us to exist. And so, the only, and as I hate being a math apologist because I sucked at math so bad, but it is so interesting that math truly makes, like, it's like a foundational piece of the universe, and we just discovered that.
Yeah. So the ultimate question for that is, if the universe ceased to exist somehow, like let's say the big crunch actually happens and the universe ceases to exist, doesn't go back into singularity, it just, let's say it goes to nothingness, like all the matter and antimatter somehow eventually annihilate and there's nothing. Would it be true that 2 + 2 is still equal to 4?
Yeah.
How?
He got me. I don't know.
If it is not
Outside
based
of
on
God.
actual physical reality, and it's just abstract, but it's abstract truth, how can abstract objective truth exist outside of physical reality? Unless it's grounded in something. Logic has to be grounded in something. You have logic there, and math is basically just logic. But the fact that math would still math, the math is mathin', even if the universe itself didn't exist to be able to demonstrate any of the properties of math, like pi would still be pi. That's wild.
Yeah.
That's insane. That is not very easily explained either. Of like, okay, why do abstract entities exist in such a way that the physical entities are not required for their existence to still be valid or true?
Yeah, it is one of the great mysteries that, I mean, as obviously we have, I hate to call it a cop-out answer, but we can literally just say it's because it's part of what God used in the creation of the universe. I mean, it's part of what his design was, but
Yeah.
It just in general, I mean, you would consider it a true mystery of how can this possibly be in a universe that is if it's all by chance, if it's all coincidence, how is this even possible?
Right.
It would be
also,
truly the greatest miracle of all time. It would be the
it
universe.
really is. Yeah.
If there was no hand guiding it and creating it, then it is truly the greatest miracle of all time.
Right. You also have the argument for love being one of the evidences for God. Yeah.
That was another one I mentioned earlier.
If man's love isn't given freely, it isn't genuine, but man's love is genuine, as we've all experienced. Therefore, man loves freely and has free will. But if you have free will, how? And if you don't, then love isn't genuine. So, like,
right.
You can't actually argue that love exists as an atheist. But we all subjectively have the experience of love. And no man in his right mind would say, I don't actually love you, dear, just my oxytocin kicking in right now. That would not go well. So,
yeah, it's just my biological reactions that are forcing me to behave in this manner towards you. I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like just Chris is just mentioning, there are so many more evidences, but this is our we like acronyms around here. So just remember, SMART. All right. This is the great case for God is SMART. So we've got science, morality, accurate prophecy, resurrection, truth is self-evident. That last one feels like a cop-out just because it's like a bunch of words, but
it's a tautology.
These are the 5 things that we're going to walk through. I actually, this may have to be more than one stream because I don't know if we're going to be able to get through all of this in one evening, and that's totally okay. Helps the channel to have more things to talk about. So, but yes, so we have science, and we were just kind of talking about science, how that is wonderful evidences for God. Objective morality, we would argue like I said earlier, that it does not make sense how throughout history there have been objective right and wrongs. And that doesn't mean that people can't have skewed perspectives of right and wrong, but the fact that there exists an objective truth to what is acceptable and unacceptable in reality makes no sense without a creator. If there was no creator, then anything goes. It would be completely subjective what is right and wrong for everybody. But we all know, even if you want to argue that, you get backed into a corner when asked, so was the Holocaust wrong? Was that wrong for Hitler to do that? Or because subjectively he thought he was doing the right thing, was that okay?
Had to be.
Yeah. And so then you've got accurate prophecy. The fact that there is even one accurate prophecy in the Bible is incredible. But there's way more than one. But if you just wanted to go off of the lowest option here, just one actual fulfilled prophecy would be pretty incredible evidence for God. And then we've got the resurrection of Christ as wonderful evidence for God, and then the truth being self-evident, which is kind of more of a philosophical idea for why God exists.
Welcome to the 1 Minute Apologist.
Sorry,
We
jump scare.
interview the world's leading apologists to provide credible answers to curious questions.
Jim, are there any
I'm so sorry. This is actually the second 1 Minute Apologist video in this slideshow. So, and they are all old. So just be, they're all like early 2000s.
Is that J. Warner Wallace? I just heard.
You will, I believe so.
techniques that can help us to
Oh, yeah.
investigate God's existence?
Well, one strategy we do when we enter into a death scene, because not every death scene is a crime scene, there are 4 ways to die. And the first 3 ways are not criminal, and we don't really care. We don't really care about working as a criminal investigation. So it turns out we got to decide, is this a murder? Because then we do have to get involved in a criminal investigation. But the first 3 ways, you can be explained by staying inside the room. Let me explain why. Let's say we have a guy who's got a gunshot injury, and there's a pistol in the room. Yet we know that that's actually his pistol registered to him. There's no evidence of any intruder in the room. All the DNA and the fingerprints come back to him in the room. Well, now I can actually explain all the evidence in the room by staying in the room. And when that's the case, it's going to be in one of the first 3 categories: natural, accidental, or suicide. Now, if on the other hand, that gun's not registered to him, and there are fingerprints in the room and DNA in the room that don't belong to him, and there's even bloody footsteps leading out of the room, well, that's totally different. Now I cannot explain the evidence in the room by staying in the room. I've got to go outside the room to explain that stuff. And when that happens, you shift everything from one of the first 3 explanations to the 4th, the real inference of an intruder, of a murder. So what we could do is take a look at the entire universe with the same principle. Can we explain everything we see in the universe by staying in the room? If we can, we'd have no evidence of an intruder. Some form of naturalism will get it done. Some form of evolutionary processes involving space, time, and matter, physics and chemistry will be sufficient. On the other hand, if we've got things in the universe we cannot explain by staying inside the room of the natural universe, now we've got a problem. We've got evidence of an external intruder outside the room of naturalism. We now have got good evidence for the supernatural existence of a first creator.
Yeah. So before we
It's a good book, by the way.
I need to add that to my list. But before we just move past that, yeah, this is kind of what we've been arguing for, is that if you have evidence provided that there are things that just cannot be explained within our reality, you have to, the only explanation can be outside of this reality. That's it. I mean, and I think that the answer of, well, eventually we will figure it out. When science just keeps improving, and over time we'll eventually figure it all out.
Right.
I would just argue that's wishful thinking.
Right.
So for science, since the creation of the universe, God's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and authority, so that they are without excuse. Romans 1:20. So a couple of scientific positions and arguments. So you've got the Big Bang Theory, that's physics, not the TV show. Fine tuning, so that's chemistry. And then DNA, which is biology. So the Big Bang, yes, this is this is always one of my favorite slides. Big Bang, yes. Fun fact, and I think it's actually another slide, but I'm just going to say it now anyways. Fun fact that originally when the Big Bang was proposed, it was shot down because it sounded too much like Genesis 1:1. And that just didn't sit right with leading scientists at the time, because they said that would be giving too much credit to a creationist worldview. Right. It is only recent history that they have tried to change that the concept of the Big Bang does not align with a creator. I was right. Okay. It's like I've done this before. Yeah, the Big Bang initially rejected. sounded too much like the creation account. Because the Big Bang states that time, energy, space, and matter were created at a definite point in the past, which means the universe is not eternal, right? There was a beginning point to all of this. And Genesis 1:1 states, in the beginning, which is time, God created energy, the heavens, space, and the earth, matter. Boom! Mic drop. We can go ahead and call it a night. I rest my case. Guys, if you don't know, this is like the 4 major things you need to even have a universe, to have reality. You have to have time, energy, space, and matter. Those are quite important. And when we're talking about the cause and effect argument, all 4 of these things, for them to be essentially effects, the cause had to be greater than time, greater than energy, greater than space, and greater than matter to cause it, right? You can't be less than the effect. That's not how it works. Right. The cause is greater than the effect. And so whatever put all this into being had to be greater. So even if your argument is that the Big Bang accounts for this, that the Big Bang is greater than time, energy, space, and matter, then what was it? Right? What immaterial power was greater than all 4 aspects of reality and then ushered all of them in without it being just God? Because Chris, I don't know if that's how you feel, but often I feel like most of the answers that people come up for issues like this sound like God. They're just not personal, right? They don't have a mind, but it is essentially a godlike power or being that somehow existed and somehow ushered all this in. It's just not personal and doesn't care about us.
Yeah, but it has to be personal because it chose to create.
Sorry, I was not prepared for that video.
The big thing. So like the fact that we went from non-existence to existence indicates that there was potential to actual. Well, in order to go from potential to actual, there had to be some actualization agent in order for that to occur. The actualization agent, if everything is purely potential, had to be a will of some sort. Something had to choose to go from potential to actual. Whatever that is a self-actualized entity, because otherwise it would have never been actualized itself. So that's part of basically the unmoved mover argument, right? Is going from pure potential before the Big Bang to actual in cause and effect after the Big Bang, whenever time began to exist. There had to be something that was timeless that caused creation or the Big Bang to even happen at all. Then you throw in the fine tuning and all of a sudden like this big expansion out of nothing or out of a concentration has to be perfectly fine tuned at the back end for, cosmic evolution, stellar evolution, chemical evolution, and then biological evolution. Because evolution is not actually just biological evolution. That's a misunderstanding of the position. From a naturalistic point of view, you have like 6 forms of evolution you must affirm in order for us to be where we are at right now. And I personally don't actually agree with any of the 6 other than microevolution. But yeah, like it's pretty wacky.
Yeah. All right, another video.
Does God exist? Or is the material universe all that is, or ever was, or ever will be? One approach to answering this question is the cosmological argument. It goes like this. Whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause. Is the first premise true? Let's consider. Believing that something can pop into existence without a cause is more of a stretch than believing in magic. At least with magic, you've got a hat and a magician. And if something can come into being from nothing, then why don't we see this happening all the time? No, everyday experience and scientific evidence confirm our first premise. If something begins to exist, it must have a cause. But what about our second premise? Did the universe begin, or has it always existed? Atheists have typically said that the universe has been here forever. The universe is just there, and that's all. First, let's consider the second law of thermodynamics. It tells us the universe is slowly running out of usable energy, and that's the point. If the universe had been here forever, it would have run out of usable energy by now. The second law points us to a universe that has a definite beginning. This is further confirmed by a series of remarkable scientific discoveries. In 1915, Albert Einstein presented his general theory of relativity. This allowed us, for the first time, to talk meaningfully about the past history of the universe. Next, Alexander Friedmann and George Lemaitre, each working with Einstein's equations, predicted that the universe is expanding. Then in 1929, Edwin Hubble measured the red shift in light from distant galaxies. This empirical evidence confirmed not only that the universe is expanding, but that it sprang into being from a single point in the finite past. It was a monumental discovery, almost beyond comprehension. However, not everyone is fond of a finite universe, so it wasn't long before alternative models popped into existence. But one by one, these models failed to stand the test of time. More recently, 3 leading cosmologists, Arvin Bord, Alan Guth, and Alexander Vilenkin, proved that any universe which has on average been expanding throughout its history cannot be eternal in the past, but must have an absolute beginning. This even applies to the multiverse, if there is such a thing. This means that scientists can no longer hide behind a past eternal universe. There is no escape. They have to face the problem of a cosmic beginning. Any adequate model must have a beginning, just like the standard model. It's quite plausible then that both premises of the argument are true. This means that the conclusion is also true. The universe has a cause. And since the universe can't cause itself, its cause must be beyond the space-time universe. It must be spaceless, timeless, immaterial, uncaused, and unimaginably powerful, much like God. The cosmological argument shows that, in fact, it is quite reasonable to believe that God does exist.
Something that kind of came to my mind as we were playing that video. It's interesting, somebody could argue, well, what about like all the different views of God throughout time, right? There have been so many different explanations for God over time, and they've all, back before we had Christianity or Judaism, we had all these polytheistic different religions, and I would argue to look deeper into a lot of those belief systems, and you find that all the gods within that belief system are not creators of reality. That the concept that a singular god or even a pantheon of gods actually brought reality together isn't really found in those belief systems. That they're products of the universe. The universe still existed already, and then these beings came out of the universe that existed, and so it's really not the Christian God. It's not Yahweh versus these polytheistic gods. It's really Yahweh versus human hubris, right? It's yeah, like it's us versus him trying to disprove that he exists, not him trying to prove himself over other gods,
Right.
because the claims of Yahweh are so profound and greater than any understanding of God we have up to this point in human history.
Mhm.
It's not even on the same like plane. But so some quotes for you. Astronomers have proven that. Oh, hold on. I need to bring it back up. I was just going to be talking. All right, astronomers have proven that the world began abruptly in an act of creation, that there are supernatural forces at work, is now, I think, a scientifically proven fact. This is Robert Jastrow, PhD, theoretical physics, Columbia, founding director of NASA's Goddard Institute for Space Studies. And then,
Scientists
oh my
have come
goodness.
to
I truly did not realize there was another video. I'm getting jump scared by these videos. In the slides, I don't see them as videos. Like there's nothing indicating it's a video. So
Right.
this is there's so
Funny.
many. I forgot.
It is worth noting.
startling truth.
Okay. William
You don't
Lee.
actually have to subscribe to any of those cosmological models in order for God to still be a requirement. As I mentioned earlier, the fact that we have an infinite regress problem with an eternal universe indicates that there had to be a time start. There had to be a first cause to this universe. Whether you want to say it's the multiverse itself would have to have a first cause. There is no cosmology you can create, even if you say it's a stable state. There is no white hole, black hole, Big Bang, electric universe, like nothing you can put forward, even like EMON, like electrically modified Newtonian dynamics. No matter what you bring forward, it will not work. It will still require a god. The universe cannot be eternal, even if you discount the effect of redshift, even if you discount the effect of entropy. The fact that there has to be an origin point due to infinite regress is not something you can get past. There had to be a god at a certain point. So even if you're like, oh, well, I reject the Big Bang, it doesn't matter. Or I have this, it doesn't matter. There still had to be an unmoved mover. Logically.
Absolutely. All right. Let's get into the 50th video.
I'm gonna get some water while it's happening.
All right, perfect.
Scientists have come to realize a startling truth. The universe looks suspiciously like a fix. Our existence is balanced on a razor's edge of incomprehensible fineness. From the very first moment of its inception, the universe's fundamental parameters were delicately calibrated so that intelligent life could exist. Scientists used to believe that the Big Bang was utter chaos, a random state of nature. Given time and some luck, intelligent life forms would eventually come about somewhere. But the more scientists studied the universe, the more they realized that the opposite is true. A staggering list of initial conditions began to emerge, all of which were incomprehensibly fine-tuned to allow intelligent life. These are known as the fundamental constants and quantities of nature. These values are so precise, so overwhelming, that it's difficult to illustrate the enormity of these findings.
No one of us has been untouched by our advances in space.
To get a feel for the odds, consider the number of seconds that have ticked by since time began. 10 to the
Loaded Skrull,
20th
I will answer your
power.
question
That
shortly.
is 10, followed by 20 zeros. Now consider the force of gravity. If the gravitational constant had been out of tune by just 1 part in 10 to the 60th power, devastation would have ensued. The universe would have either expanded so rapidly that no stars could form, or else collapsed back in upon itself with the same result. No stars, no planets, no life.
The heavens cannot be studied at first hand, but the information rides in on beams of light, the immense, mysterious universe into which we are born.
Or what about the distribution of the matter and energy in the early universe? If these were not evenly distributed to an unthinkable precision, then the universe would have been hostile to life of any kind. How extraordinary that anything should exist. The fact that the universe is fine-tuned for life is uncontroversial. How then does one best explain this incomprehensible fine-tuning? There are 3 live options. physical necessity, chance, or design. The hypothesis of physical necessity says that the universe must be fine-tuned for life. A universe which is hostile to life is impossible, it said. However, not only is a life-prohibiting universe possible, a universe without life is far more likely. Each of the parameters that governs the universe can take on a wide range of values, thus reinforcing the improbability of fine-tuning. So what about the alternative of chance? Most scientists recognize that pure chance is not an adequate explanation of the fine-tuning. The mathematical odds are simply too great to overcome. Many scientists have tried to increase the probability of a life-permitting universe by postulating a multiverse. They imagine that there are an infinite number of universes, and we are just one member of the ensemble. Since we have an unlimited amount of chances to get it right, then the odds will be in our favor. This move is perhaps the greatest compliment to the power of the fine-tuning argument. For in order to explain fine-tuning, scientists have turned to a philosophical explanation. The multiverse itself cannot be detected, measured, observed, or proved. Moreover, the multiverse faces a devastating objection. If we were just a random member of a multiverse, then we could explain away all sorts of improbabilities in our everyday lives. We shouldn't be surprised when the roulette wheel continually lands on the red 20. After all, the math implies that this is happening somewhere without foul play in the multiverse. So why not here? In the end, then, neither physical necessity nor chance offers a good explanation of the fine-tuning of the universe. As Freeman Dyson confesses, the more I study the universe and the details of its architecture, the more evidence I find that the universe, in some sense, must have known we were coming.
Science is bringing us closer to an understanding of who and where we are.
That's a pretty sick video, not gonna lie. I had not seen that one before. Some of this stuff is new to me because this is like a newer version. I also hope I don't get copyright striked. I just realized like all these videos, I have no idea if we're gonna get in trouble for that. So, and did I tell you I got a copyright strike?
Stream, man.
Yeah,
you got a copyright strike?
Yeah, because I didn't know. Well, I guess I knew, but I forgot that if you post a video that a YouTube short that's longer than 60 seconds and you try to upload it with music, you'll get copyright striked. Not just a warning and like, hey, you can't upload. Wouldn't it make more sense for YouTube to be like, you just can't upload this because it has music? No, they allowed me to upload it and then gave me the copyright strike, not because the music had a copyright issue, but because it was a 3-minute YouTube short. I'm so upset. That's whatever. It's so stupid. Anyways,
I just don't do music, man.
Yeah. What denom is this channel? So it's technically the channel itself is not denominational, but we because we have people from all different types of backgrounds who come on. I am Wesleyan in my background. My church left the UMC during the craziness of the 2020 stuff, and then Chase is a part of the an Open Brethren church, which comes from the Plymouth Brethren. It's long lineage, low church, pretty based. So, all right, fine tuning. We've mentioned this a few times, but most of the constants that govern the universe have been precisely selected and coordinated to allow for life. No shot. There's another one.
From galaxies and stars down to atoms and subatomic particles, the very structure of our universe is determined by these numbers.
Oh my gosh, this is not going to stay up.
Are the fundamental constants and quantities of the universe. Scientists have come to the shocking realization that each of these numbers has been carefully dialed to an astonishingly precise value, a value that falls within an exceedingly narrow, life-permitting range. If any
We
one
also
of
have
these
two
numbers,
streams going right now.
even a hair's
They
breadth,
could both individually get
no
struck.
physical, interactive life of any kind could exist anywhere. There'd be no stars, no life, no planets, no chemistry.
You said what now?
You have two different streams going right now on YouTube. They could both individually get struck.
Oh, that would be terrible. That would be 3.
If you would get your channel deleted instantaneously.
Oh, that would be really sad. Hopefully they count these as not.
They don't.
Well, we're going to go through with this anyways because we're already here. Can't go back now. Can't change it now, bro. I guess can I appeal that?
You could try.
Would they give me the channel back if it did happen?
Yeah, it happened with Ash. He got his channel back. But again, it depends on if the system automatically strikes you or not. But
Well, guys, if you're watching right now and you're watching live, it's been a good run. We may not be here tomorrow. I may have a long, lengthy call to the YouTube executives and be like, please, please give me my channel back. I promise I won't do it again. Oh, why are there so many videos? I know there's probably more. Oh, it's so crazy.
yeah,
Anyway,
I can almost guarantee you there will
I
be.
know there's more videos. Oh no. We may have to go through and just hide all the videos from here on. Surely not. I mean, I watched some Jay Dyer streams where he is just like playing video after video.
Right. I mean, yeah.
It's probably fine. As long as like we're in the picture and we're talking, and they'll probably count it as like remixing the content, fair use.
Yeah.
A reaction video. Anyways. I just don't know how much is
Consider
allowed to
gravity,
be used.
for
That's
example.
fine.
The force of gravity is determined by the gravitational constant.
Oh,
If this constant varied by just 1 in 10 to the 60th parts, none of us would exist. To understand how exceedingly narrow this life-permitting range is, imagine a dial divided into 10 to the 60th increments. To get a handle on how many tiny points on the dial this is, compare it to the number of cells in your body, or the number of seconds that have ticked by since time began. If the gravitational constant had been out of tune by just one of these infinitesimally small increments, the universe would either have expanded and thinned out so rapidly that no stars could form and life couldn't exist, or it would have collapsed back on itself with the same result: no stars, no planets, and no life. Or consider the expansion rate of the universe. This is driven by the cosmological constant. A change in its value by a mere 1 part in 10 to the 120th parts would cause the universe to expand too rapidly or too slowly. In either case, the universe would again be life prohibiting. Or another example of fine-tuning. If the mass and energy of the early universe were not evenly distributed to an incomprehensible precision of 1 part in 10 to the 10 to the 123rd, the universe would be hostile to life of any kind. The fact is, our universe permits physical, interactive life only because these, and many other numbers, have been independently and exquisitely balanced on a razor's edge. Wherever physicists look, they see examples of fine-tuning. The remarkable fact is that the values of these numbers seem to have been very finely adjusted to make possible the development of life. If anyone claims not to be surprised by the special features that the universe has, he's hiding his head in the sand. These special features are surprising and unlikely. What is the best explanation for this astounding phenomenon? There are 3 live options. The fine-tuning of the universe is due to either physical necessity, chance, or design. Which of these options is the most plausible? According to this alternative, the universe must be life permitting. The precise values of these constants and quantities could not be otherwise. But is this plausible? Is a life prohibiting universe impossible? Far from it. It's not only possible, it's far more likely than a life permitting universe. The constants and quantities are not determined by the laws of nature. There's no reason or evidence to suggest that fine-tuning is necessary. How about chance? Did we just get really, 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 really lucky? No. The probabilities involved are so ridiculously remote as to put the fine-tuning well beyond the reach of chance. So, in an effort to keep this option alive, some have gone beyond empirical science and opted for a more speculative approach, known as the multiverse. They imagine
I love a
universe generator
machine
that cranks out such a vast number of universes that odds are life-permitting universes will eventually pop out. However, there's no scientific evidence for the existence of this multiverse. It cannot be detected, observed, measured, or proved. And the universe generator itself would require an enormous amount of fine-tuning. Furthermore, small patches of order are far more probable than big ones. So the most probable observable universe would be a small one, inhabited by a single, simple observer. But what we actually observe is the very thing that we should least expect: a vast, spectacularly complex, highly ordered universe, inhabited by billions of other observers. So even if the multiverse existed, which is a moot point, it wouldn't do anything to explain the fine-tuning. Given the implausibility of physical necessity or chance, the best explanation for why the universe is fine-tuned for life may very well be it was designed that way.
Well, sci-fi noise is cute.
A common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect monkeyed with physics, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. The numbers one calculates from the facts seem to me so overwhelming as to put this conclusion almost beyond question. There is for me powerful evidence that there is something going on behind it all. It seems as though somebody has fine-tuned nature's numbers to make the universe. The impression of design is overwhelming. The heavens declare the glory of God. The skies proclaim the work of his hands. Day after day they pour forth speech. Night after night they reveal knowledge.
Based.
Some more quotes here, but something else. I watched a YouTube short the other day, and it was talking about like how beings would develop on different planets, and it made me think about the fact that like when it comes to the idea of alien life, we're kind of making a lot of things up out of assumption, because we are the only possible form of intelligent life we have to go off of. We have no other evidences of intelligent life. So the concept that humanoid-like creatures could evolve or exist on other planets and be different than us and be shaped different and formed differently and respond differently to different stimulation and eat different food than us, whatever it might be, that is completely baseless and outside of reality, because we have no evidence to support that. That's not me just dunking on that YouTube short. I found it enjoyable, but I'm just saying that like we don't have a basis to possibly believe any of that is even possible. So,
right.
What's up, Kevin?
Yeah,
but
the quote from Hoyle is one of my favorites. With the looks like someone's monkeyed with physics to make it actually work.
Yeah, yeah,
it's great.
One.
But even beyond the gravity, like the constants of the universe and the laws of the universe, do you have anything on the uniqueness of our planet and the uniqueness of our solar system?
I actually don't think we do.
That's an interesting argument.
That's real quick. Kevin, I'm sorry you were having to work, brother, but we still need to do a Calvinism stream. We haven't even done that yet. You mentioned that like months ago, and we still haven't made that happen. Anyways, actually, I hope that we're here. If we're here, we make it. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we'll be okay. God, please do not let us get copyright striked. Let us exist here tomorrow to continue to spread your word. Let the YouTube admins just look a blind eye. Surely all these Christian videos are fair use videos. Surely,
We'll see. You can pray at the end of the stream. Unless you want to pray now, but so the argument goes that it's not just the fine tuning of this, like the universe itself is fine tuned, which the universe is obviously fine tuned. But do you know what they used to say the only requirements for life is in the solar system?
No, I do not.
Originally, they only gave two. And it was that you needed the right type of star and the right distance away of the planet. So you had to be in the habitable zone.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
That's actually bunk. No. It's not even close to two. Do you know how many we actually have that we've discovered so far?
No, but I'm sure it's going to shock me.
It's in the hundreds.
Yeah, I figured it was going to be something way higher than just two.
Yeah, it's definitely not two. Not only do you need the Earth to be unique in this special way, you also have to have the sun to be unique in a special way, and you have to have the solar system unique in a special way in order for life to exist. So let's go through a couple examples. Did you know most solar systems have more than one star?
Yes, I did, but I've never thought about that. That it is interesting that we only have one.
Most solar systems are binary or ternary systems where they have 2 or 3 stars. So like the in Star Wars with the 2 sunsets. That's actually realistic. 85% of all solar systems that we've observed and counted have more than one star. So right away, you're eliminating 85% of the entire universe for having life because you need one star. If you have 2 stars, the heat is too much, the instability is too much, and whenever the 2 stars spin, they actually create these like if you're in a boat, if you've ever done like wakeboarding, or if you've ever been in another boat goes by you, their wakes can topple you over. The same thing happens, but for solar wind. So whenever they spin around, they're actually creating these like riptides of solar wind that would decimate planets. You would not be possible to have an ozone because of the strength and the type of radiation that would be coming off of these planets as they're spinning around each other. Not the planets, the stars. As the stars are spinning, they would strip all atmospheres. You couldn't sustain life because of the 2 stars, both because of intensity of heat and because of the radically crazy electrodynamics that you observe in binary systems. So right away, you're discounting 85% of the universe. And these are all compound statistics. You're thinking about it. So we're left with only 15%. And that also like destroys liquid water. Like you can't have liquid water without an atmosphere. Yeah. So you also need the star to be just the right distance away in order for the radiation to not be too intense or not intense enough, because you have to have heat. So we do have the habitable zone, but that zone is dependent on the star itself. But you also can't have a red star or a blue star because their type of radiation doesn't support life. You have to have a yellow star. The fact that we have a yellow star is pretty weird in and of itself. That is an order of magnitude lesser. You also have to have 2 gas giants in your system, which is kind of interesting. The gas giants and they have to be in the right order and the right distance away. So the vast majority of...
I did not know that.
Yeah, the vast majority of solar systems are actually ordered from biggest to smallest or smallest to biggest. It's actually weird that all solar system has a mixed sizes as it goes. So it goes really small, not the smallest, to slightly bigger, to kind of okay, to smaller, to massive, to also massive, to smaller, to kind of small, to nothing. And then you have a bunch of exoplanets. We have like 30 to 40 planets in our solar system, even though we only talk about 9 of them, rip Pluto. But we actually have Planet X is real. We have dozens of planets beyond Pluto. Anyway, the fact that our solar system is not ordered smallest to biggest or biggest to smallest is also kind of strange. Only 1% of the solar system actually has planets in this order, in this way. But it's needed because you have to have the Jupiter to be able to absorb asteroids and other debris. It is basically this gatekeeper of there's this not prophesied. There's this theorized Oort cloud at the edge of the solar system, a light year away from the sun, that is constantly shooting the asteroids at us. Otherwise, how do we keep getting asteroids and meteorites and all that stuff? Where is it all coming from? They're like, oh well, there's an Oort cloud. Then it's because we're isolated in the universe. We're on a little island. So where's the rocks coming from? Especially if we're expanding out, there shouldn't be any meteors coming in. It's kind of the part of the problem with the standard model cosmology. Anyway, so we have this problem where the vast majority of planets we've observed are not terrestrial. They're not rock-based. They're only 20% or so that's rock-based. Yet we have a wide variety of them that are rocks. So we have our first 4 planets are all rocks. That's kind of weird. But yet 20% of all solar systems don't have any rock planets. They're just gas giants. So you have you're decreasing. You need terrestrial planets in order for life to exist. You can't exist in the giant, frozen gas cloud of Jupiter, or the giant tornado hurricane type deal that's happening there with the big spot. You also need the type of orbits that we have in order for the stability to exist the way it does. You can't have perfectly elliptical and you can't have perfectly cylindrical, circular orbits. If you have all perfect circular orbits, it actually affects the way the solar system moves. I don't have the exact method in front of me, but I remember reading that it actually matters for life to exist. You have to have these interactions between the planets inside the system in order for the type of stability that you need for the atmosphere and other things to exist. So with all that together, you actually have plus the sun's uniqueness, because the sun is very small and it has a weird amount of radiation. It's actually significantly more stable than any other star we've observed in the universe. So out of all of the stars we observed, typically stars go through the cycle of their poles reverse, or they don't have poles, which a lot of people don't know. The sun has a North Pole and a South Pole that flip-flops every couple months. Which is why solar wind, it's pretty strong, and then they get weaker and weaker, then it becomes this slurry, and then every time it does the slurry, it's sending out a whole mess of storms. So every single time this happens, you get strong solar wind. The stronger the solar wind, the less likely it is to retain an atmosphere. Even if you were able to build up an atmosphere from bacteria filling it slowly over time, you wouldn't be able to maintain it because the intensity of the solar winds would be too much. So you need an incredibly stable star that produces minimal amounts of solar wind in order for you to maintain an atmosphere in order to have life. Our star is 5 times more stable than the next most stable star we've observed in the universe.
Wow.
5 times. That, plus all the other things, makes our solar system less than 0.001% of the universes we've observed. So right away, you're getting rid of 99.999% of all of solar systems that we've observed. They wouldn't support life. So you talk about, there's, probably billions of aliens out there. It's no, out of the, quadrillions of jillions of things we've observed, 0.0001% of them are going to actually be life-sustaining at all, possibly. And then you still need an Earth, because Earth is incredibly unique as well. So out of the 5,000 planets we've observed, there is none that is actually like Earth. So you need a certain amount of liquid water, which our amount of liquid water is outrageous. You also need a lot of solid water in order to purify the liquid water. So you actually need ice caps. So you need the star to be stable and a certain distance away in order for liquid water to exist and solid water to exist. and gas water to exist. So you need the right pressure, the right heat, and the right stability in order to keep that cycle rolling. You also need a moon to be able to create, again, as to facilitate the tides. Without tides, life doesn't exist. Surprise, surprise. Tides are a requirement for life. So you need a moon, but you need a moon to be gravitationally bound to the planet, because not all moons can fit the bill. Our moon is special in how it's gravitationally bound. It's like it's on a rope, because you always see the same face of the moon. Not all moons are like that. Some moons rotate in the opposite direction. Some moons rotate way faster than their orbits. If you look at Saturn's moons, they have a whole mixture of types. Our moon is unique in its size, shape, gravitational connection to the planet, and what it facilitates on the planet all allows life to exist. Not only that, the Earth has to have a plasmasphere that is interacting with the solar wind to deflect it. We literally have a giant electric shield on the planet that is millions of volts. And you go up a little bit high, it's like, scary. And then you go up a little bit higher, than you're out in the atmosphere. The outer layer of our plasmasphere not only allows lightning to exist, it also allows blue jets to exist, which are giant lightning bolts that go into space, which are pretty awesome looking. If you've never seen them, they're pilots were told that they were crazy whenever they told people about them. Like, I saw this crazy thing whenever I was flying. It was like this giant lightning bolt going into the heavens. They're like, are you drunk? What's happening? And no, it's actually a real thing. They're called blue jets. They're like, thousands of times bigger than a lightning bolt, and they actually go outward instead of go downward. All of that affects the charge density and the structure of the plasmasphere. All of that happening allows us to both maintain an ozone, which again is very important, which is why the whole hole in the ozone layer, everyone was freaking out. They were freaking out for a good reason, because it protects us from the deadly laser, which is the sun. But the plasmasphere itself also protects us from the deadly laser, which is the sun. It allows for a charge density gradient on the planet itself, which is necessary. It's why you should go walk on the beach with your shoes off, because you actually need to be electrically grounded every once in a while. Surprise, surprise. Being barefoot's actually good for you. But all of that stuff affects the pH of the water, the voltage on the planet, the way our cells can function. Lots of really interesting things within that. The tilt of the Earth, it also matters. If it was tilted a little bit more, tilted a little bit less, you wouldn't have the right type of seasons that we have, again, for renewal. You also need the core to be made out of liquid iron in the way that it is. You need the core because that's what creates the plasmasphere. If you don't have a strong electromagnetic dynamo happening inside the planet, you don't actually have the plasmasphere that you need to protect you from the solar wind. So you need a very strong iron core in the middle, or some other type of ferromagnet that is producing a ton of electromagnetic energy. But most planets don't have that, because iron is a heavy metal, and solar fusion doesn't produce iron very much. So basically, the Earth's core is not really explainable from science. Like, oh, well, it was a giant supernova of a giant blue star. Maybe, possibly, but it's still way more iron than what it should be. And we also have a bunch of heavy elements on the crust, which doesn't make any sense. Like uranium and thorium. There's an abundance of thorium. Doesn't make any sense. So the unique chemical properties of the Earth is also important. You need the dynamo in the middle. You also need the exact distribution we have of all of the chemicals on the planet. So out of the, what is it, like 160 elements on the periodic table, however many it is, only 2 of them are in the same abundance as the other 5,000 terrestrial planets that we've observed and done Raman spectroscopy on to analyze their chemical makeup. Only 2. So out of the 100 plus, 2 of them are normal. All the other ones are abnormal, and they appear to be finely tuned for life. Like cesium, for example, is what holds your cells together and keeps you alive. That is in the perfect abundance. If it was a little bit less or a little bit more, you would dead. You would be dead. You would dead. Same with all the other ones. Arsenic, same way. You need arsenic to stay alive. You need certain, like, they're called vital poisons. So the distribution of vital poisons within our planet is perfect for life. Like, oh, well, it could just, evolve a different way. No, we've tested it. There's 4 chemicals that are bases that could be used for life's development, water being obviously the best. All 4 methods of life being created through those 4 different chemicals all still require these types of fine-tuned elements we observe on the planet. So you have all of that plus like another dozen, 2 dozen more that I'm not going to mention just for brevity's sake, but you can kind of get the picture. The Earth is extraordinarily unique and fine-tuned. The solar system is extraordinarily unique and fine-tuned. The star is extraordinarily unique. It's completely unique. We haven't observed anything else like it. You add all that together, and it makes it look like there is a 0% chance of aliens in the universe. Because we shouldn't exist. Why should we expect anything else to exist?
Right. Yeah, and on a much, simpler basis, I have tried explaining that to people before, and they just now I think if I had your answer for that, they would probably agree with me. But I think there's some really difficult conversations I've had with people where I'm like, guys, like you don't understand how difficult it is that life exists. And the problem, like I said earlier, is that we just don't have any form of evidence to support a concept that life could exist in a different manner. I mean, in all sense of theory, maybe, but again, there's nothing to back that up. You're operating with what you think we're operating with. You think we're operating off of this blind faith. The idea of aliens is blind faith. You have blind faith that there could be a different form of existence. And we're not talking about like microbiomes and simple cell structures. I'm talking about actual intelligent moving life. Like we're talking like humanoid-esque creatures. It's just it's
Right.
not really possible. Kevin, I have
I would
no
even say
idea.
the microbiomes aren't possible either.
Likely not. Yes, I would agree. Kevin, I have no idea if you're still in the chat, but I have not watched this debate yet, but it's on my list. I will watch it. Okay. So we are at the 140 mark in our time. I think we are close to the end of the science portion of SMART, and we may just wrap up with that and try to knock out a couple more next week. Maybe try and finish SMART next week since we did a lot of pre-work to that. Sir Fred Hoyle, a common sense interpretation of the facts suggest that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics, chemistry, and biology, and there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. The numbers one calculates from the facts seem to me so overwhelming as to put this conclusion almost beyond question. So, DNA. I'm sure there's a video for this one too. I'm probably going to skip it for time's sake. The complexity and engineered functions of the molecule of life require an intelligence far beyond this universe. So it's the marvelous molecule of life. The coding regions of DNA have exactly the same relevant properties as a computer code or language. And this is Dr. Stephen Meyer. He is a great Christian scientist. He's a scientist who is also a Christian, I should say, not the religion Christian Science. Almost every cell in your body has enough information stored in its DNA to fill 1 million pages of typed text. That's like actually insane. I don't know if that's like, if we can really ponder that for a second, that every cell in your body, you have billions upon billions of information within your literal body. To think that is totally coincidental racks my mind. I can't even understand how someone could come to that conclusion.
DNA is so impressive that we're actually trying to synthesize DNA hard drives, because you can store most of the internet's history on a couple strands of DNA. Like all images, all files, all video, all of that can be digitized to base 4 and then stored on DNA tapes. They've actually created a working prototype of it. It's just not, it has to be done in the lab, but we actually have a DNA hard drive that they created that can store, petabytes of information at a time.
That's insane. I mean, it's brilliant to think whoever was like sitting there thinking, I wonder if we can replicate this and record all of human history on it is
Right.
brilliant.
Turns out we can't replicate it, but we can just use it.
Yeah. So what would happen if so also I did skip the video. At this point it wouldn't matter about the copyright thing, but I do think just for time's sake, just to keep going, what would happen if a Mars rover found the following message? Welcome to Mars, Earthlings. It would be proof of intelligence, right? Because it uses coded symbols to convey complex information. That complex arrangement of symbols, letters, cannot be formed due to natural processes, right? This would be astounding to just find and assume this just happened by chance. The coding system used for living beings is optimal from an engineering standpoint, and this strengthens the argument that it was a case of design rather than chance. Warner Gitt.
What is this?
You gotta be kidding
This
me.
is a series of
Let me see. I've seen this one so many times, and this is such a good video, but again, we are running out of time, and I'm gonna such a good video, but oh, it's fine.
nucleotides
Let's
that
watch
are
it.
in a certain order, like information, like letters that are directing traffic. Here's the problem, and Stephen C. Meyer does the best job of saying this. Is simply this: there's not a single example in the entire history of science or the universe in which information ever comes from anything other than intelligence. So if this is information in the genome, what is the intelligent source that has put it there? Because you cannot get information any other way. Let me show you what I mean. Why do we think that DNA is truly information and requires an intelligent source? Well, because if you look at information, it comes in 5 levels. Let me introduce them to you. Here's my dog. But let's just go with me for a second, do a little thought experiment. Let's say I put a typewriter in front of Bailey, and Bailey, I said, Bailey, do me a favor, type me out a sentence. And after banging her little paws against that typewriter, I write down on the chalkboard what she's typed. She's typed this. Is that information? Yeah, actually it is. What is she saying? I don't know. Is she trying to say anything? I don't know. But is it information? Well, in some sense it is, but it doesn't really tell me anything. I think that natural processes of physics or chemistry could get you this. This looks like random generated sequences. What if I give you one more? What if she typed this? This would be really cool. TT spacebar, TT spacebar, TT spacebar. If she did that, you'd say that's a smart dog, wouldn't you? I think there are actually some physical properties, physical processes of physics and chemistry that could produce simple patterns. That's information, folks. But what is she saying? I don't know. Nothing really. What if she had a bigger pattern she typed? Wow. T13 T spacebar, T13 T spacebar. Now she's really, really smart. But what is she telling me? I don't know. Nothing really. But this is information in the sense that it's specific and detailed. And I think there are actually some laws of physics and chemistry that can give you more detail, like snowflakes, great patterns. So is this information? Yeah, but it's the lowest level of information. This information is called statistics. It is the lowest. Is this what DNA is? No. Let's go up one level. What if Bailey could type this? Wow. Now you're impressed, aren't you? She's mastered word selection. She can actually put the letters together and group them into words. But what is she telling me? I don't know. I'm not quite sure what she's telling me. We're up one level. We've mastered words, but we don't have any content yet. This is called cosyntax. What if she could type this? Now we have words in a proper linkage that gives us a concept we can recognize. How do we get this through natural processes? You can get this. You might stretch and say you can get this. I don't think you can. You can't get this, though. This is another level of information, which is called semantics. I've been places where people have mastered something between these two. They understand the words, but they're not quite sure how to put them together. Maybe English is their second language. I was in Malibu at a Thai food restaurant, right? I go into the restroom. This sign is hanging in the restroom at a Thai food restaurant in Malibu, California on PCH. Please do not throw paper wiping hand down toilet. I think I understand what he's trying to say. And he's somewhere between cosyntax and semantics. He kind of has the right words almost in the right order. What if my dog Bailey could type this? This is actually a request. Information that requests a response is different than just information describing something. Information that requests action is another level that is called pragmatics. And if you expect that the person you're talking to is actually going to respond and do this for you, that's even another level called apobetics. These are the highest levels of information. Requests with an expectation of response. If you want to know the difference between this and this, one easy way is to simply ask yourself a question. If I change one character, does it change the meaning of this sentence? Of course not. That's not really information. It's the lowest level of information. So if I look at this and I say, just take one character out, the comma, this has no change at all on this sentence because it didn't mean anything before. It doesn't mean anything now. I think some of you know where I'm headed with this. You can look on your face. But at the bottom, at the highest level of information, you know it's high information because if I make one change, like take the comma out of that sentence, now everything changes, right? Now the sweet Bailey who was wanting Grandpa to feed her has now become the evil Bailey who wants to eat Grandpa. See the difference? And that's why we know that this information is at a much higher level. Small changes have dramatic changes in meaning. So the same thing happens in your DNA, right? Here's Billy the Kid, or maybe this is Jesse James, I forget who this is. But if I look at his genetic code, the stuff that actually structures who he is, and I make a small change, take out, let's say, this one nucleotide and replace it, that change results in a change in Billy. Something is going to change. Why? Because this DNA is not just statistics. It's the highest level of information. It's a pragmatic request that's expected to be met. This is hard to explain in a naturalistic universe. And even the naturalists recognize that. So Paul Davies, a physicist from ASU, says, we are still left with the mystery of where biological information comes from. If the normal laws of physics can't inject information, and if we are ruling out miracles, which of course they are, then how can life be predetermined and inevitable rather than a freak accident? How is it possible to generate random complexity and specificity together in a law-like manner? We've always come back to that basic paradox. How do you get this by staying in the room? Well, I describe a couple of ways people try to get it. One thing you can do is simply say, oh, it's just chance. You do it long enough, hard enough, these things will happen by chance. But that really misunderstands the level of information involved. Or you can argue that there's some natural law that could cause information. Give me an example of that. You won't. There are no examples of natural law ever giving you anything more than statistical information, the lowest level of information. So if you want to stay inside the room, you're going to have to go by chance or by law. Those things don't work. Why? Because we're seeing true information in the room. And that means you've got to have a source of true information, and that's got to get you outside the room. That's the problem. See, here's the problem with asking these questions. I ask these questions all the time in homicides, but I don't stop here. I don't ask these questions and stop. If I did that, I'd never solve a case. The next question I have to ask is the money question. It's a who question. All these questions point to the who question. If I refuse to ask a who question, then trust me, you're never going to get an answer. So the folks who are doing Origin of Life, they don't want to ask any who questions. Can't be a who, has to be a what. That's why you can't solve this, folks, because it's a who you're looking for. And this is what Warren Getz says about that. He says, yeah, you're looking for a who. A necessary requirement for generating meaningful information is the ability to select from alternatives. And that requires intelligent volitional entity, because unguided random processes cannot do this. Not in any amount of time, because this selection process demands continuous guidance by intelligent beings that have a purpose. That's how you get information. If the source of that information happens to be an intelligent, communicative being outside the box, I could explain information inside the box.
So good. We will end on this. When you see a painting, you know there's a painter. When you see a building, you know there is a builder. When you see a creation, you know there is a creator. Absolutely. Super simplistic. But yeah, no one would look at Mount Rushmore and think, wow, nobody made that. It's just the result of millions of years of erosion. Who would look at the architects and the skilled carvers of Mount Rushmore, who were nearly infinitely more complex than the carving, and then say that nobody made them? If a painting is so complex that it requires an intelligent designer, then how about the actual painter themselves? They are far, far more complex than any known piece of artwork. The necessity of an intelligent designer is a self-evident truth. Yes, there are many more. I think it's just there's so many arguments from science that prove that there has to be some form of a creator. We haven't even gotten to the specific concept of a Christian God, but just that a God has to exist who has ordered these things to happen. I think it's almost inarguable, but we still argue about it today. And I think, oh yes, there is another video. There is another one. This is a good video though. Oh my goodness. I got to talk to the creator of these slides because I don't know what we're going to do moving forward. He has jam-packed this thing with videos. Maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong. When I was an atheist and I decided to explore the rational underpinnings of belief in God, I was astounded to discover strong arguments from nature and philosophy that point to God's existence. God did create the universe. It is increasingly clear to modern science that the universe was exquisitely fine-tuned to enable human life. That was Richard E. Smalley. And from atheism to Christianity, a homicide detective journey is another video.
Welcome to the 1 minute of...
Hold on. I'm going to stop it here because I'm positive this is going to go into morality. So I might be wrong, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop it here. Okay. So I think we're going to wrap up on that. But what I just want to end this on, don't fear the concept or somebody telling you that science has disproven God. One, that's ridiculous. No, they haven't. Science has not disproven God in any shape or form. It is the fact we are even able to work in scientific fields, figuring these things out, putting these pieces together is evidence for God. Always dig deeper. Don't listen to what people tell you on first glance. Look into these things because the sheer fact, like DNA is, to me, is the biggest one. I don't see how these strings of letters that speak sentences and work together to create you and create everything, the concept that is all random, it feels like a slap in the face even to the idea of science. Like, it doesn't even make sense that could be random. Even if you thought that the order of them was randomized for every individual person, that still doesn't explain how it even does that. How does DNA do what it does is still not explained, even if every single thing in the universe that DNA was responsible for was randomized for every single thing. Doesn't change the fact that it doing that at all is still a written language that produces something. That's ridiculous. There's like the monkey argument that if you put a bunch of monkeys in a room with the typewriters and then eventually they would pump out William Shakespeare. No, they wouldn't. I would argue that it's actually impossible. They would never do it. Yeah. It would never happen. And I will confidently say it would never happen. Because even if they could get what J. Warner Wallace was explaining, even if a bunch of monkeys could get you actual words, the problem, especially when you come to books, when you come to plays, that those are not just intentional thought that led to sentences, and then those sentences that needed responses. It's intentional thought that has a backing to it, right? There is not just intentional thought to what is being said, there is pre-thought that an event you're speaking of in like page 2 might have some type of ramification for something you're writing in page 30 or page 60, right? That doesn't happen by chance. That is intelligent thought that has pieced together a storyline that has a plot. You could use the argument of stories to say that's an argument for God. Because how do we even get to that point? How do we get to the ability to have that type of intellectual thought that you can put together a story where everything fits together perfectly? That doesn't even make sense, especially for rational beings that just exist by chance or happenstance. And then, Chris, one of my favorite arguments I've used on this, and it's so simple, but if I took a blank canvas and I just put it on a wall, how much time would it take for that blank canvas to become a beautiful artwork?
Forever.
Yeah, forever. Now, if I
would
gave
never
it,
happen.
let's say that I put a single dot in the middle of the canvas. Do you think eventually that one dot would rapidly expand out and become something?
No.
Yeah, no, it's impossible. I could even give it like I put a bunch of dots on there. I could put globs of paint on the tops and let them just run. That's still not a painting. I mean, you could call it, I guess technically in some places you could call that modern art, but it's not, like it there's no thought.
Reminds me
to
of the
it.
crayon art.
Yeah, it's just
My
random.
sister, as a kid, you just put a piece of paper on a thing, you just melt crayons above it, and then take the piece of paper off, and it's like, oh, it's art. And it's like, I guess.
Yeah, it's something.
Yeah.
Or the argument of like, if you had every piece required for a Lamborghini and you had them in a garage and you just let them sit there for billions of years, would you eventually have a fully put together Lamborghini? No. It requires someone to put all the pieces together to make the car run. And then it still needs gas. Right? It's like everything can, even if I permitted to someone that the universe before had everything required for us to get to this point, you still would have to have a guiding hand putting all of those things together to happen. And again, those are silly arguments. They're just very simple-minded arguments, but it speaks a lot of truth. You can have everything you would need for a universe to exist, but if nothing pushes those things to happen, they're not just going to do it by themselves. The argument that they would just naturally happen it doesn't make any sense.
Right. Which the modern way that they get around it is, so the videos that you played had 3 categories, but they actually invented a 4th category of chance-based necessity. So it's still necessity, and it's still chance, but it is necessity causing the chance. So instead of it just being a Lamborghini parts sitting in garage, it's a Lamborghini parts sitting in garage, plus a tornado rolls through, and then the tornado magically assembles it into a Lamborghini, then it lands fully gassed up and ready to go. That's their actual argument now, by the way.
That is so genius. You know what? I did.
So your version of it would technically be a straw man.
I didn't think about outside factors, right? Because they don't think about outside factors, right? They don't think about that the universe had some type of exterior beginning by a guiding hand or force.
Right.
Well, guys, thank you for watching, and we will be back next week. We'll finish the SMART acronym, hopefully, and again, if we're here tomorrow, I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be fine. And if not, I will fight with YouTube and plead for them to reinstate our channel. So
yeah, if you're not here tomorrow, you can come check out my channel, Defending the Lion. And on Monday, I just did a stream on Genesis 1, where Steven got me off track and I ended up doing a 50-minute rant on abiogenesis.
Lovely.
So, yeah.
You know, we defending a lion may pick up 2 more employees if our channel is no longer here tomorrow. All right. Well, God bless everybody. Have a great evening. And we will see you. I guess you'll see Chris tomorrow. Chase will be on with him tomorrow. I may pop in, but I'm not positive on that. And then we will all be together next week. So, peace.